Okay, so this is a calculator heavy kind of lesson, so please make sure you try to follow along, especially with your calculator in hand. With the calculator, and particularly with this lesson, we're going to be in the habit of resetting our calculator after every question. So second plus 7, 1, 2, and we'll repeat that again after. Any of the steps that I'm about to show you are literally written out on the notes, but I'm going to literally just follow the steps as we go. So we're introducing a new button, the Stat button. Next to the arrows, you see STAT, so you click that, and we're going to hit Edit for number 1, okay? And you're given Table. Now with this table, we're going to type all of our data set in. So when you type these in, you just hit the number, enter, and so on. So I'm going to take the time to type each of these in. Now, believe me or not, but this is where a lot of kids mess up. If you don't type the numbers in correctly, then you're going to get the wrong answer, guaranteed. Order doesn't technically matter. They don't have to be in order from least to greatest. Just type it in as a list. From here, we're going to go to step 2. So we're going to go to Stat, to the right for Calc, and we're going to use number 1. Now, since we're taking the mean of the first list of numbers, we're just going to hit Enter 3 times. Now, again, you get all this mumbo jumbo going on, but all we're going to focus on is that top value with the X with the bar on top. This stands for your mean or your average. Now, the 83 itself is something you covered in 7th grade. So the mean means I take the average, which means you add them all up, divide by how many numbers there are in the data set, and you would get 83. But 8th grade focuses on taking it one step further and finding something called the mean absolute deviation. So I'm going to explain that as we go through the next step. So we're not done yet. Step 3, we're going to go back to Stat, Edit. Every step goes back to Stat. We're going to put our cursor on L2. So you have to go to the right and up. If you stay below L2, you're going to get error. So you have to go up on L2. Then we're going to click these 3 things. Math, which is underneath alpha, over to num, so go to the right, and then we're going to use absolute value for number 1. All that does is put absolute value bars at the bottom of the screen. And right here, we're going to put our list 1, so second 1, minus, make sure it's minus, not the negative. And then this is where I bring back the 83, the mean that we got earlier. You hit enter, and all of these numbers pop up under your data set for L2. Now, what these numbers actually mean are, if I take 83, 83 is 12 positions away from 95. 83 is 7 positions away from 90. 83 is 13 positions away from 70. 83 is 17 positions from 100. 83 is 18 positions from 65. So all this has done is tell me how far each of these numbers are from the mean, the average. Now we're going to take the average of this list. So that's what the definition of mean absolute deviation is, the average distance from a set of numbers from the actual mean. Fancy definition, I know. So we're going to do step 4, which is Stat, go to the right for Calc. Number 1 again, but since this is the second data set that we're looking at, we're going to change L1 to L2 by clicking second 2. And then you just hit enter 3 times. And again, we're just looking at that top value. So the average distance from the set of numbers from the mean is 13.4. Now, if I completely lost you, we're going to repeat those steps. And I'm not going to explain as much. We're just going to walk through the steps rapid fire. So you're going to reset your calculator, second plus 7, 1, 2, after every question. Starting at the beginning, we're going to go to Stat, Edit, type the numbers in. And again, don't mess up this part or you mess up the rest. Then we're going to go to Stat, over to Calc, number 1, and we're going to hit enter 3 times. The number that we care about is the mean on top, so 17.8. And then we're going to use that here in a second, so we write it down. Stat, Edit, we're going to make sure our cursor is on L2, and we're going to click Math, over to Num, Abs, where you see these absolute values pop up. Down here, you're always going to put second 1 minus, so L1 minus. This is where the 17.8 comes back, and we hit enter. And if you don't see this list of numbers pop up, you weren't on L2. If you see negatives on here, that means you didn't do math, num, abs, okay? Then your last step is like your first step. Stat, over to Calc, number 1, but we're going to change it to L2 since this is the second time we're finding the mean. And then my final answer is 2.16. Okay, repeating those steps again. Reset your calculator, second plus 712. Again, every step goes back to stat. So stat, edit, 75.8, 79.2, 78.6, oops, 82.1, 76.7, 77.3. Then you go stat, over to calc, number 1, hit enter 3 times. Now, on the rare occasion, and the toughest it gets is whenever the mean is a repeating decimal. So we are going to remember that the 3 is repeating here. It's going to matter here in a second. Then we're going to go to stat, edit. Again, go to your cursor on L2, and then math over to num, abs. Down here, you're always going to put second 1 minus for L1 minus. Now, here's the tricky part about this one. When I type in 78.283, I have to show that the 3 is actually repeating, so I have to click a bunch of 3s until I get to the end of my screen. Because there is no bar to put on top of the 3 here, so we have to hit 3 repeatedly. And then you get some crazy looking decimals. Your last step is just like your first step, so stat over to calc, number 1. But since this is the second time, we're going to change it to L2. And so your answer, ironically, is just a numerical value, which doesn't look correct, but we're going to move on. All right, number 4, reset your calculator. We're going to go stat, edit, and we're going to type the values in. Double digits are trickier whenever they repeat, so sometimes the buttons stick, so make sure to always check that your numbers are correct before you continue, just to be safe. We're going to go stat over to calc, number 1, hit enter 3 times. Again, this is our mean, but that's so 7th grade. So we're going to go on to 8th grade. Stat, edit, put your cursor on L2. We're going to go math over to num, abs. And again, down here, you're always going to put L1 minus the original mean. And then you get a list of values. Again, make sure there's no negatives. Stat, calc 1. But this time, since it's the second time, we're going to hit L2. And my answer is a repeating decimal. So make sure when you write that answer, you show it with a bar on top.